Hello everyone, welcome back to Teach, Sleep, Repeat, the podcast where we keep our finger on the education pulse and we deliver to you all the news and reviews and all the best things that you'll ever see with some light, smouldering.
My name is Hayden, and this is
Dylan.
Dylan, you changed it up there.
I know, because you said earlier we should do some kind of like, let people know we're listening for the first time, like what the podcast's all about. And I feel like I did a solid 4 out of 10 job there.
No, I thought it started well.
Yeah, and
then you got a bit flustered.
I got lost. Yeah, because also I saw your face like
I was going, ooh,
yeah.
ooh. I've been listening to a lot of Rob Beckett and Josh Widdicombe's Parenting Hell podcast.
Yeah.
And I noticed that they do that. So I was like, well, they're famous and funny.
We're trying to
We're
be.
one of the two. I'm not sure we are, actually. And I thought it might be a good thing to do.
Okay.
Really good podcast, by the way. Have you listened to it?
I don't like Josh Widdicombe's voice.
Really?
Yeah.
He's got a very particular voice,
Yeah,
isn't he?
I can't listen to it.
Very nasally.
Yeah, and I listened to a couple and I just didn't go with it. But I mean, I know it's a great podcast and I've listened to snippets which are really funny. But then I thought, I'm going to listen to a whole one very recently, actually. And I was like, I'm going to listen to it. And I just didn't go with it.
Well, they're not going to be guests on our podcast now, are they?
Oh, yeah, not now.
They would have been. Oh, no, bother
now.
messaging.
Otherwise, geez, they were going to be right on here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Josh Widdicombe, great guy. Just don't listen to your voice for now. Whereas you guys listening to this, you will listen to this for an hour, don't you?
Do you know what I did like about their podcast? They have a lot of still talking about it because I like it.
Yeah.
They get a lot of interaction from people. They get people sending in.
There.
Yeah, they get people send in like little voice clips and stuff, and they play them every week.
Do you
and
know
they
what I
do a
like about their
segment.
podcast? People like their podcast.
I do like it when they don't interrupt each other.
People like their podcast. So anyway, moving on. Go on.
That was it, really.
No, you're gonna say
They do nice segments. They get like small businesses on to like do little bits.
Hayden, this is a chat we should have separately, not when we're live on the podcast.
Not live, are we?
It's
not live, is it?
It is live.
Not really live,
It is
is
live
it?
because we don't do any editing, so it might as well be live. Might as well just go on the airwaves. Whatever happens.
Anyway, welcome, new listeners. We talk all things education in this podcast.
And how was your week?
Dylan interrupts me. I think we should play a game where you guys keep tabs on how many times he interrupts me.
And
not just little
I don't
ones.
reckon. I don't know.
Like this,
I don't.
But like when I'm mid-point, I'm mid-sentence, he does it. That's fun.
Do you know why I do it? Because I want to save the. I was about to swear. I want to save the viewers from boredom. Wow. Like, all right, go on then.
Crikey.
Hayden, by the way, just so we all know, before this podcast starts, he's like, "Oh, Dylan, you're gonna have to lead this one. Oh, you're gonna have to lead because I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. I can't think of anything. I can't think of what to say, Dylan. So you're gonna have to lead it." And then do you know what I do? I come into the podcast and I lead it. Dylan, you're always taking control of the podcast.
That's not true.
You're always taking control.
That is not true. Can I tell you what he really did? I'm going to show you all. If you're watching, it's his little note. Normally,
it's a podcast. Most people aren't watching.
Normally, we write our notes on a shared screen, right? And he's sat there doing his little notes, scribbling his little notes on this little notepad. And then he closed it like kids at school. They don't want their partners to cheat. He closed it over like that, like no. And I was like, I haven't written anything down. I need to know what the conversation points are. He was like, well, write your own ones. It's a shared podcast. Honest.
No, because what happens is I'll write my points and then I'll be like, I can't wait to make that point, and we'll go to the podcast and you'll be sat there going, yeah, I was just thinking actually, and you'll say my pre-prepared point, which makes really good. So I thought what we could do is like we haven't prepared properly. Anyone who listens, I'm sorry if this is your first podcast episode. This is slightly unhinged.
You apologise every week for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know why you're still listening, but we prepare it. I thought we call this week if I just have my own points and we just have more of a conversation.
That is good, but I just want I just want to know what the overarching points were to talk about. Otherwise, I am just.
You know, the title of this episode is "Does School Prepare Children for Real Life?"
Yeah.
I was going to read what you put there, but you did it grammatically incorrect. I wasn't going to show you up.
Does the school prepare?
Does the school? Just one of them. Just one school.
Does the school? I was like, what are you talking about? That's right. There's only one school. I only work in one school.
But as always, before we dive straight into what we're actually going to talk about this week, we are going to catch up and have a little chat about what's happened this week in the world of education and our own lives, indeed, ourselves. Hayden, how's your week been?
That's nice. Been a lovely week, as always. Coming up to SATs. Getting a little bit stressful, but still pretty on
because you're a year 6 teacher, right? So do you feel stressed at this point, having done it so often?
A little bit. Like a little bit.
Why
I'm not stressed about the kids doing SATs, to be honest with you. It's more like it's just the feel of like people getting a bit like, oh, no, we've got to make sure we've taught this. Actually, I haven't done this in a while. And also me, I put the pressure on myself like, actually, if I haven't recapped everything like fairly recently, there's a chance they might have forgotten that thing. So I need to be really cautious to like, I haven't got extra time. This is the date the SATs are, and I need to make sure, oh no, I didn't do Roman numerals in ages. That might come up, even though it's completely pointless. It might come up in the SATs. that sort of
Do you
stuff.
find yourself falling into that trap then, even though your personal opinion is you don't really care, right?
Yeah. I don't not care. I think it's,
No.
you know,
I'm sorry. Let me be really clear. You don't care about the fact that it might come up on this arbitrary paper that we've all decided is really important. Like, you're going to teach your kids stuff, obviously, but like, you don't actually care about the whole SAT system in that. You don't think
really.
it's as highly regarded as it should be.
No, I think we need to chill out on putting the pressure on 11-year-olds to perform in
That's
some
exactly
tests
what I
that
mean.
literally is meaningless to them. Like, genuinely. People sometimes I pretend sometimes to make myself feel better that this test has any meaning on anything, and it literally doesn't. So I'm like, no, we probably should just chill out a little bit. But no, I'm not feeling too much pressure. Maybe the week before I'll be a bit like, oh God, have I done my job properly? Have I taught everything I should have done? But it's all right.
Quite normal, I suppose, that in any old job when what the SATs essentially is for you guys in year 6, especially. Even I know it's a key stage 2 exam. I know it's testing everything, but it's particularly in year 6. It's like you that kind of pride does come into it, doesn't it? It's like if you feel like your kids have underachieved for where they should be, then that's not a nice feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you did the final stretch with them. Like when realistically, like memories aren't perfect, are they? So realistically, the last year is going to make the biggest impact in terms of what they remember in that test.
Sure.
So I don't know. But other than that, one nice little win we've had at our school, which I'll just share with our listeners, because I know you know, because you work at the same school as me, is last week we talked about using AI, or week before, I don't know, about using AI to write reports. And actually our school has come out since then and just made it really clear in a staff meeting that it's completely fine to do that. And I'm glad they did that, because I think people are still a bit like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to use AI. Of course you are. AI is great for writing reports.
And if you're not, no one will know. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
I don't know. They're quite easy to tell, aren't they?
Yeah, but you could just say, no, I wrote them.
Yeah.
And
true.
what honestly what would happen?
Yeah. But our school's really good. They just said, look, it honestly spent 5 minutes doing it. They just said, look, this is an example of some AI software you can use. They're really good, and this is why it's okay. And the reasons were basically, you're still inputting everything personal about the child. All that the tool is doing is saving you 5 minutes, structuring it into a beautiful paragraph. It will just do it for you, probably better than you can do.
And those
just
5
save
minutes
time.
multiply, don't they?
Yeah,
Like
big
when
time.
it's 5 minutes per kid for one subject, it's like, okay, well, each kid has 4 subjects I've got to write for, and I've got 32 kids.
Yeah.
So you can extrapolate. You do the math.
So use AI. It's really good for writing reports. It will save you a lot of time, and they're pretty good at the end of the day. What about you, Dylan? Good week?
Yeah, good week. Couple of things. I guess one would be, again, highlighting our school. We're really bigging up our school here. I very much enjoy our school. And as anyone who's a listener to the podcast knows, we had Ofsted at the end of last year. If you're a new listener, go back and look at our podcast episode, our Ofsted experience. It was very enlightening. Obviously, we're very vocal about the fact we absolutely do think that Ofsted is completely broken. However, it's still a thing that exists, and teachers do need to be held accountable.
We went through it.
Yeah, schools need to be held accountable. We went through the whole process. It was a really nice and cathartic, I thought, afterwards to talk through it. And it's worth listening to. But anyway, the point is that our head after that experience, and, Ofsted does heap on the pressure of any school for a good at least a year, probably 2 years before they actually come, because you don't know when they're coming. So you need to put a lot of effort into preparing. So our head said, cool, every single person in the school gets a day in lieu, just because we went through Ofsted basically. So it's been known as the Ofsted Day. And yeah, it's fantastic. And his point was like, I could do a lot of things to try and help, but actually you just want some time. And I was like, absolutely true. Like what everyone says, the best thing for well-being is just time.
Not going to work.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, yeah, exactly. What's the root of the well-being? Is doing the job. So I had my well-being day. My friend, Need Financial Planning is his name. He, for his, I think it was a birthday gift, he got given some gig tickets in London for a comedy event. Yeah. So I went up with him to watch that, and we made a day of it rather than like rushing after school, going to London. We went to Camden Market, ate loads of food. I put on our Instagram, rate my plate, and I love how seriously people took it. Yeah. When I see like a sliding scale thing on Instagram, I usually just slide it all the way up because I want to.
I took it seriously because you put one up that was quite cheesy.
Yeah.
So I made sure to put that right down because cheese is rank.
Exactly. And looking through, like the same people obviously vote on each one. It's very interesting, very insightful to see, well, you like the pasta dish. Anyway, that was a really nice day. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, that is a direct consequence of someone in SLT, a head teacher, taking well-being seriously, and I feel great for it, and I was very grateful. And do you know what? It kind of juxtaposes like doing less work, because genuinely in the future now I'd be like, that was nice. Of course I don't mind doing this thing. It's like scratching. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, kind of thing. Like it's
all a psychological game, and that
treat people, with
that
kind
that
of
thing
respect.
we saw months ago, and we mentioned it because someone put it on Facebook or something like that, and they were saying about how when they worked at a school that was toxic, they were like, hell no, I'm not doing anything extra. I'm not doing it. And then when they worked at a school where they were treated nicely, they were like, yeah, I don't mind doing a club. And it was the same amount of work, but they were just treated nicely. So it does make a difference.
Yeah, because your mental state, exhaustion's one thing. I don't think anyone's a teacher and isn't actually always exhausted. Like we were talking earlier about the whole thing of, I think teaching is this thing where we are walking a tightrope where anyone doing the job could very easily fall one side or the other into complete burnout, hating the role and really like falling out of love with teaching, and the other side, which is actually still really enjoying being with the kids and loving your job. And I think the biggest determiner for that fact is the school you work in rather than the person you are.
Yeah.
I think almost anyone who's a teacher, if they're in the wrong environment in a toxic school where they're undermined or forced to do work or just treated like rubbish, treated not like a person, treated not like someone with a family at home, treated like someone who's got no interest you want to do that evening. You're going to go and do this planning for me. That's going to drive anyone to despair. Whereas I think a thing we have to do with teaching is really nurture that. And you've always said this, and it stuck with me, and I completely agree with you. If we ever stepped into a role of SLT or did anything like that in the future, what the number one thing would be the well-being of the teacher, because everything else stems from that. I don't know if you want to just expand on that.
I reckon it'd be controversial, by the way, because I'd be really vocal about it. I'd be like, no, staff come first.
Because here you go then. So I'm going to be the person you say that. I work at the school, or I'm down the road, or I'm Ofsted or whatever, and say, what a ridiculous thing to. Of course, the children come first.
Staff come first.
Why?
I say because they do, and I walk away and leave you hanging. No, it's simple, isn't it? It's more provocative than it really. Like saying that statement. What I mean by that is, if you have happy staff, they will do a good job. Simple as that. And then, but inadvertently, by putting your staff first, you're putting the children first as well, because they will just do a better job. Simple as that. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's not as simple as that, and I'm oversimplifying it. But to me, I think it's a simple way of thinking about it.
Why don't you do it, mate? You set up your own
do you know what I might do?
Yeah.
I might do.
And we'll watch it burn and fail.
I'll employ you. You can be like admin assistant or
Thank
something.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Roles reversed once.
Oh, that's good.
I saw something this week in the news I wanted to talk about, and I'm
Right.
hoping it develops into a bit of a discussion. Don't interrupt me. Thank you. There was a school in London, and I had a whole debate with my family about this because a few of my family members work in a school, some don't, obviously, but everyone's got an opinion on this, and that's why I found it really interesting. Is children are addicted to social media. That is a fact.
Children?
Hayden Stevens is addicted to TikTok. But I think, to me, it's different. Children are just protected.
Yep.
We've talked a million times already. Go and see our episode, The Toxicity of Teacher TikTok. I think that's a really good
well
one.
done for saying that,
Yeah,
by the
no,
way,
it's good,
considering you
isn't it?
can't normally say words in general sentences.
By the way, Need Financial Planning, the guy I went with to Camden that time, that's his new name.
Yeah.
He showed me on the way up on the train, he's started to keep a notes tab of everything that we get wrong with language.
Oh.
And he only started on one episode, and there was already 3 on there. And I was like, well, if you could be bothered, you'd find hundreds if you go back.
So
because
funny.
he realised that we constantly say things wrong.
Yeah,
like I said something like, it's not all roses and jolly. And I meant like, it's not, I was just saying it's easy. I just mashed together two things.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was this big discussion. It was on this morning. A head teacher in London has suggested a 12-hour school day. And the sole purpose being to try and break the social media addiction of his children. And this was a secondary school, which I think we see a lot more of the kind of, social media problems.
Yeah, the phones are more rife.
Phones are more rife. And the point was to break it up. What is your thought on that immediately?
I think the headline is very like clickbaity and catchy. My first thought on that was, I was like, oh, what an idiot. What's he talking about? And then I didn't read loads. I did just skim past it, like I imagine a lot of people did, and just looked at it a little bit. And when I saw that it was a controversial way, I guess, of being like, yeah, because kids are on phones all the time. And it's not, I'm not saying they should come and do maths and English for 12 hours. He was like, yeah, we'll just provide tons of extracurricular stuff that really they should just, back in the olden days, people
Cooking.
would do anyway.
Yeah.
They'd cook and go out and play some football with their mates or go and do whatever. We'll just put all that on and just make kids do it. So I'm not actually for it, I don't think. But I thought it was an
it
interesting
compulsory?
point. I don't know. It might not
I don't
be.
think it was compulsory. So
Yeah.
if it was compulsory, I think that would be
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I doubt it was, because I feel like
Yeah.
anyone would not go
Yeah,
through
yeah,
that
yeah.
thought and be like,
No,
come to that
no.
conclusion.
No.
So in the end, when I saw it was more, it wasn't as clickbaity as I thought. Like, this teacher thinks that everyone should be doing that. Everyone should be working 12 hours a day to teach kids. I realised that he's just making a wider point about a massive issue, which is what you're getting on about. And it is true, isn't it? Like, it is a problem.
It's a huge problem.
It is a problem in primary school.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it's like in secondary school. As a year 6 teacher, I've had so many issues. It's the biggest issue. Issuing issue. What's the word?
Go on, try again.
It's the biggest
Go on.
category of issues.
You went with category.
What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know what
I
you're
don't know.
talking about.
It's the biggest cause.
Right.
The word cause.
Okay.
That one. Cause of
This
issues.
guy teaches SATs, guys. That's how important that
It
is.
is though. Like,
Yeah.
I've had in the past. I've taught year 6 for like 5 or 6 years. I've had kids being caught on their phones making TikToks in school toilets.
Yeah.
I've had kids making TikToks about each other at home and like horrible things, and making YouTube videos about each other and doing horrible things. And I'm just like, oh my god, like social media causes so many problems. The worst one. I don't know if you get this in year 4. Probably not. Probably too young.
We don't have phones in year 4.
WhatsApp groups, man. Oh my god, I just can't get over how WhatsApp to me is just this innocent. It's just a messaging thing, and we use it for our business. We use it all the time just to personally talk to people. Kids make WhatsApp groups, and they're just brutal to each other. They are ruthless. They send voice notes.
It's just another way of. It's another platform that allows bullying and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
horrendous.
So I in that respect, I want to separate this out because I don't think that WhatsApp's a problem.
No.
I think children are going to find a way to be horrible to other children, and it's a bit. I get boomer kind of vibes from someone who's like, what's it horrible? It's because it's WhatsApp. It's like, no, it's not. This just used to happen on the way home from school,
Yeah,
or
the
when
bus.
you used to go in the park and play Kirby with your football, right?
Yeah,
You used to be horrible to other kids all the time, right? So kids are going to be horrible to other kids. That's a problem that's ongoing. It's always going to be there. We have to be ways to step in and help them and stuff like that. It's always
can't
going to happen.
pretend we can get rid of
We're
it.
not going to solve that issue, yeah. But I think that what's different to me is how incredibly mind-rotting and horrible and disgusting the algorithm is, and all you need to do is talk to anyone who runs these companies in Silicon Valley over in California who are in charge. They don't let their own kids on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, because they know that it's terrible for them.
Absolute brain rot.
Absolutely terrible for them. And I suppose my wider point here is I don't think this is a bad idea, because it's basically saying to kids what we've always said: here are some enrichment activities that I'm offering for you that you can come along to. The only rule is when you come along, you don't bring your phone.
Yeah.
And it's like, could you want to do some cooking, some cleaning? Okay, brilliant. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that's the only way we're actually going to ever solve this problem.
Do you think it'd work?
Yeah, I think it could work in that if in those 3 hours they'd be sat in their bedroom scrolling on TikTok mindlessly, mind-numbing, scrolling, just getting brain rot by being fed stuff which is age inappropriate for them. They shouldn't be on it anyway. It's not filtered whatsoever. I think that's terrible for them. So if instead of doing it for 5 hours every evening, if they're doing it for 2 hours, but they also played a game of football and cooked a cake.
Yeah, but I
in the
wouldn't.
afternoon.
I'll be that kid. I would just be like, it's not
Yeah, but okay,
compulsory.
that's
I'm
fine.
doing it.
You're not part of the. You're not this problem. You shouldn't be forced. You're still an issue. I'm not. It's not going to solve the thing completely. But if some kids do it, it's obviously a good thing.
Yeah, I guess some kids. I just don't think many kids would do it. Maybe I'm skeptical. The
Parents might force them to. I
Yeah,
also
true,
just think
true.
sometimes you just have to like. I want to ask you again, just very clearly about the whole should phones be banned in school, because I am very much of the opinion that they absolutely should. There is no need to have a smartphone in a school.
No.
It's not a Nokia where you just phone your mum because you're walking home,
Yeah.
right? But I think in the hours where you go into school, and I don't care if people disagree with this or not. Like I've thought about this enough, because people go, oh, it's quite that they say that's boomerish. Of course kids will have phones in school.
Yeah.
Why? It's just a rule. No, you don't. And if you bring them in, they go in a little plastic wallet or a case
Yeah.
or something. They're locked away all day, because do you know what? At break time, you can talk to your mates. You don't need to scroll TikTok. We don't need to be pandering to 14, 15-year-olds because they want to scroll on TikTok in their break time. No, you're in school to learn.
Yeah, we've got other rules enforced, haven't we?
Exactly. We don't. We have rules about uniform. We don't just go, okay, no problem. Whether you agree with them or not, different story. But it's okay to have rules sometimes. And I think sometimes people want to go the other way, and it's like, oh, but no, we should allow
It's
them to have it in
anti-liberal.
school. It's just kids. They want to go in it.
I mean, I'd say
I
we're
don't
both.
care,
Me and
no.
you are quite liberal generally, aren't we? I think
Yeah.
we're quite liberal thinkers. But I do agree. I don't think phones should be banned from the premises, but I do think they should be banned during school hours. So quite simply, like I think of my year sixes, right? And a lot of their argument was, a lot of parents' argument was, yeah, I'm not going to let them walk home though unless they've got a phone, and I
Fine.
want them to be independent. So I was like, okay, fair enough. So they bring it in school, they put it in a little pot, it stays in a locked cupboard all day, and then they get it at the end of the day. I don't even give it to them. This is the issue. This is the I've learned this, by the way, because in the past. I'd give it to them in the classroom as they were leaving. Right, so go on in, here's your phone, put it in the bag. We're leaving now, and I'll dismiss you. And even in that time, there have been kids that have got in trouble for like getting their phone out in the 20
Filming.
seconds it takes
Yeah.
and filming something. And I'm like, oh my god! So now I give the phones as they're like, there's my mum or my dad, or I'm walking. So there's your phone. Then off you go. And even now, I'm really harsh actually, because when even if they're just standing around waiting for someone from another class to come out, or their sibling or something, I'm like, no, put your phone away.
Yeah.
They're like, but you've I'm gone now. I was like, no, okay,
No.
you're still standing like right here in school.
Yeah.
You're still representing the school. You're still standing right there. Other kids coming out. Put your phone away.
Yeah.
You can get your phone out as soon as you leave that gate. I don't care. You do what you want, but you put your phone away. So yeah, I think banning phones in school, they have no place. Well, they do have a place. That's a lie. But I think there's other ways you can do it. Like a lot of people will say,
go to the office if you want your mum.
Not even that, but a lot of people say, "Oh, you can use smoke. It's modern. You can get them engaged with their phones by putting like little games on it that come up. You know, like you all log in on your phone and you tap the answers and stuff. It's like, okay, have school ones.
Yeah, do it on an iPad at school.
Have school iPads. Have school something. And I know, okay, budget. You can keep going lower into the argument, and as every
budget.
argument,
Does everyone have a smartphone then? Does every kid in your class have a smartphone? No, because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
So that's a ridiculous argument to be like, oh yeah, we're going to rely on your personal smart tech to do a lesson in class. That would be ridiculous.
True, yeah.
Winds me up. Anyway, I saw it and I thought we got a lot of flack for something which I think is quite nice.
You got a lot of flack for a headline, basically.
Yeah.
Not his actual idea. Classic news.
Yeah. So again, and you know, I don't think any teachers would be expected to do a 12-hour day. It would just be, do you want to? And if the answer is no, then cool, don't. And if the kids don't want to come, then cool, don't. But here's this I thought it was a really cool idea. We can't sit here and be like, enrichment's so important for kids. Why are we giving them more enrichment opportunities? And then this guy does that. And it's like, oh, that's awful. You should allow the kids to sit on TikTok for 4 hours.
Last point, by the way, because I only want to move on. But you can make it work, because I've worked in a primary school that's not quite to this extremity, but it was a longer day, right? You can just have shifts like normal jobs. It doesn't mean that you don't have to have teachers now working like 17-hour days to allow this to happen. It's like, no, you just have a teacher that does the normal job.
How did it work in that school then? Because you had a longer day, right?
Yeah, I worked in a free school that had just a very different timetable. The kids came in earlier and they generally went home like an hour later as well. But the classroom teachers like me, we finished at a certain time, and then we had these like other specialist set of teachers that came in and did these other lessons, that, like a PE teacher or a drama teacher or a music teacher, whatever. Yeah. They came in and did the second chunk. So it was like, it was just shifts. It wasn't me just
you were
doing
marking and stuff like it was after school.
Yeah, it was just after school for me on those times. It's like, or it was by PPA or whatever it was. So it can work. Of course, you can have shifts in. You can have companies coming in and running clubs and stuff. Don't know. I think it's really quite a cool idea, actually.
Same.
The more I think about it.
Yeah, same. I think you got a bit of a harsh deal there, pal.
It's basically just turning a school into a community centre, isn't it?
Yeah,
After
essentially.
school.
Because there's no community centres anymore.
Yeah,
we can't in one breath complain about how there's no opportunities, and then when something like this comes up, everyone's jumping it. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was a nice idea. And I'm also I would love someone to convince me otherwise, and I'm not even joking now. Yeah. I would love someone to convince me that for some reason smartphones would be okay in a school.
It's a trap, guys, because he's extremely stubborn and arrogant. So don't try. Not worth it.
Listen, I wanted them to do it so I could destroy their argument. No, I just think there's some point where I was speaking to someone about it, and their reply was like, "Oh, but some kids just, whether it's a rule or not, they just so stubborn, they just won't do it anyway." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I was thinking to myself, "Cool, I was probably that kid if I didn't understand the rule." But tough, because some people know better than you. It's not good to have TikTok at school.
Yeah,
and that's the end of the conversation.
End
of conversation. Start of actual discussion of podcast, where the question is in the title, and we're actually going to talk about it after this jingle.
Wow.
Hayden, does school prepare children?
The school or just school?
Hayden, does the school, the only school, does school prepare children for real life?
Not really.
Okay, see you next time.
Wow, that's it. Done.
Does school prepare children for real life?
I don't think so. Not really. Genuinely,
Really?
I'm being serious.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not even joking. Not really. What, all school? Just primary school? Secondary school? We've got to break it up?
Does the school system, does the education system prepare children for real life?
I think most people would say no, and maybe that's why I'm saying no. Maybe I've been sucked into it. You look like you've got a different opinion on your face. No, not really. I don't think so.
Okay, so what is preparing someone for real life? What does that involve?
I guess just taking the average life of someone in the UK and thinking, what stuff do they need to do in order to operate a normal life? And I don't think school really touches on much of it.
Okay, so think about this then. What currently children in school, it's a very outdated system, isn't it? Let's be realistic. It's not really changed since the Victorian times.
Yeah.
So,
whether that means it's outdated or not, I don't know, but it's certainly old.
Well, probably means it's outdated because it's over 100 years old. But
not necessarily.
No.
But I agree.
Okay,
So
it's very traditional. It's an old school way of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Literally old school. What about it does prepare children for real life? What about it doesn't? What do we do right?
Okay. We've got a national curriculum.
Yes.
And
we never used to.
No, we didn't. And it'd be interesting to argue whether it was better before then. I don't know. But I do think I mean, obviously there are areas of the curriculum that are useful. Like most of the curriculum, especially in primary school, is just skill based.
Sure.
And sometimes when the kids say to me things like, "Why are we learning this?" Which is a common question you get by the end of primary school.
What do we teach in primary school? Where if someone says, "Why are we learning this?" you'd be absolutely confident saying, "Because in real life."
Right.
So what does that count as?
Reading.
Sure.
Obviously, reading is because everyone uses it. So that to me, I'm like, yeah, we do that right. Because everyone needs to read. Like you just need to read, don't you? It's very, very, very hard to navigate through life and have what I'm going to keep referring to an average life. By the way, every time I'm talking about someone's life, I am just thinking of like the bog standard average life in the UK. I'm not going to extremities.
Yeah.
To have a bog standard average life, you do need to be able to read. You need to be able to do a basic set of maths at least, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of jobs, you need to have an extended knowledge of maths.
Yeah.
So the curriculum does that really well. And
So wait, I want to jump on that really quickly then, because maths and English are obviously the main ones. You can talk about the other things in a minute, but going back to that, when you're saying we do that well and it's preparing them well for life, you kind of talked about two different things as well, which was like the life of someone and the job market. So like, is it relevant that we're getting kids ready for the job market, or are we really getting kids ready to? So do you think that's important then? Because or is it more important to simply get them ready to be able to function in society? Or do you see them as the same thing?
Same thing. Because if I'm going to keep talking about this average person, the average person in the UK needs a job for like 40 years.
Yeah, sure.
Right? There's not many people really that can't work.
So do you think that's the role of a school?
Yeah, because that's part of life. So if we're just thinking about what is life, right?
Sure, okay.
What is life? Life
Part of the role of a school.
Yeah, like for the vast majority of people, life involves having a job. So I think it would be dumb to think that to say that schools shouldn't be preparing kids to get jobs. Because they are going to need it realistically. You might have some rich kids that are like, well, I don't need to. It's like, okay, well, we're not talking about you.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the average person who's probably going to need a job to get income, to have a home and, to have a normal life, right?
Yeah. So reading, writing, I suppose.
So those skills are good for the job market, right? But then there's I don't know if you want to move on to this right now, but there's the whole other part of life.
But is there anything else which is good then, before we go on to this? Because I suppose the point you're making now, you say no.
Okay,
does the buck stop there?
No, we talked about primary, all the other subjects. I think school is good at exposing kids to a wide range of other stuff. So at least give them like some opportunities to develop. Like we're not just making a ton of accountants and editors. Do you know what I mean? Like we're only doing maths and English.
Yeah.
So we are also making historians and artists. And people that want to go and travel the world and study geology or something. Like we are making those people as well, and they're only getting that enrichment through a free education that they get.
What do you think about your interests? And I'm thinking about my interests now. A lot of them do stem from when I was a child and being interested in something. Like,
I think so.
I was really interested in space. Like I loved the idea of space. I was interested in history from a young, and I ended up doing a history degree. So like I can see direct links from what I was doing in school to what I ended up being interested in adult life. And is it preparing me for life to teach me interesting history subjects? You could probably say no, right? It's not preparing you for life, but it's worth doing because it invoked this like interest. Like I guess the point I'm making here is you're talking about the job market, getting ready to contribute to the economy and society and the average life. But isn't there an argument to be had that there's also a really important way of preparing for life is simply just like
enjoying stuff.
enrichment and enjoying
I think there's a slight miscommunication here that I'm going to clarify, which is I actually don't think there's a problem with the curriculum we teach.
Right.
I think all the stuff there is great. I just think there's stuff missing.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to argue to say that we're wasting our time teaching the stuff we teach. I just think we're missing out on a whole bunch of stuff that the average person does in life.
Okay.
So therefore, I'm saying because of that, schools don't prepare kids for life because it teaches half of it.
So in that case, is there a way that we could prepare for life? Could you talk about other things maybe that you think are missing?
Yeah.
That you definitely need in your life, which school necessarily doesn't. But then also maybe talk about how could we introduce that about missing something else? And is there a way to actually prepare someone for life? Or is it a futile thing that we're trying to aim for when actually it's going to be impossible?
Well, I don't know. Let's go back and forth and find out of our conversation. So I don't know. I'm very much thinking as we go. And hopefully you are as well.
Okay, so what's missing? What's missing?
Okay.
What should the education system, when you finish, what should you have learned or done then that is going to get people ready?
Okay. The average person has to pay tax. The average person has to pay bills in their home. And I don't think at any point in education do we even attempt to properly train people before they leave and go and be adults how to navigate those things in the world. I think it's just kind of perchance, and hopefully someone in your family will show you, or hopefully you'll go on a YouTube video when you need to do it and work it out. But we spend so much of our early life in school. I just refuse to believe that there's not a place to learn those things that the average person in this country is absolutely needing to be able to just function normally as a human being.
The average person doesn't actually pay tax, though, in terms of person. It comes off their amount before they get there.
Sure.
So are you talking about understanding it or doing it?
Understanding it. Obviously, some people do pay their own tax, but we're talking about the average person. You're right. The average person probably does just have a job, and the tax is all done for them. They just get a pay slip at the end that says it. But when you have a whole bunch of people that are misinformed on how these systems work, and then we say, here you go, here's a vote as well on how we're going to run the country. It's just so easy to manipulate people and to vote some sort of way based on misinformation or misunderstanding, right? So I think we need to educate people properly on, this is actually how it works. Like the amount of people, I'm sure you've experienced this, right? When I was in my early 20s and I worked at Tesco, I remember so vividly my boss at Tesco, like way higher up in the ladder than me at Tesco, telling me a story about how his mate and how he recommends this to people was not going to take this job pay rise because it was going to push him into the 40% bracket. And then he didn't, and he worked out that if he paid 40% on all his income, he would earn less than when he was only paying 20%. And he had this fundamental misunderstanding as someone, trying to educate me. And I didn't really know much about it at the time, being a 20-year-old, on how tax works. And he was completely wrong. And he nearly like set me up with that mindset of like, oh yeah, it's not worth going for trying to earn a certain amount of money because then you'll just get taxed more.
For context here, like just to lay out to people, I suppose what you're saying here is, let's say at 50 grand you start paying 40%.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that it's 20% below that.
Yeah.
So 20% of 49 grand is just under 10 grand.
Yeah.
Right? 40% of 50 grand is 20 grand.
Yeah. So
he thinks he lose 10 grand by going up to 50 grand. But for anyone out there who might be listening to this and actually still doesn't understand the tax system, because a lot of people I know don't understand it, who are incredibly intelligent and bright.
They just don't think about it. Maybe
they don't get it. They don't quite understand it. That is not how it works. You get paid. You get taxed 40% on anything you earn over 50k. Yeah. So if you go from 49k to 51k, only £1,000 is taxed at 40%.
Yeah. So I didn't understand that, and he didn't either. And they're the kind of things I look back and I'm like, that's mental. That's mental that we all rely on this like system, a structure for our entire country and everyone living in it, right? And people don't even know how it works when they come out of school. And then I would often use arguments, but they know, and I'd insert a ton of things from the curriculum that are, in my opinion, way less useful, I suppose, to understand.
But do they? So most people who don't understand like the tax system, like you said, right?
Yeah.
They don't actually then also remember everything about Anne Boleyn. It's not like suddenly, because they did history, their brain's just full of all of these dates about when, the War of the Roses was and Anne Boleyn died on this date. No, they've forgotten that as well. So it's not like we can't magically assume. No, not at all. And there'll be some people who maybe get it, but I don't think we can magically assume like, oh, why didn't you teach me this? It's like, well, could you work out the percentage of a number in the first place? No. Well, then, of course, I'm not going to teach you the intricacies of the tax thing, which is all about percentage of an awkward amount, and it's got different scales.
So is that an argument? Is that an argument to never teach it to anyone then? Not
at all. But it's an argument to say that like there are certain things you need to learn first. Like you need your basic understanding of maths first. I think there's probably some parts of the maths curriculum that are less important. But at what point do you start? Like at what point do you only do stuff which applies to your real life? Like in terms of problem solving and working out the missing angle of a triangle, right? If you can't understand how to work out the missing angle of a triangle, can you really understand the intricacies of the tax system?
Maybe.
Probably not though, because the intricacies of the tax system
maybe not
is way more complicated. Understanding what I've just explained in the tax system, to have a proper understanding of that is way harder to have a proper understanding of 180 take away 2 angles you can see.
But I reckon you could have a superficial understanding of that.
I think you could have superficial
enough to at least get it right. I reckon you could understand. I reckon most people, even if they're terrible at maths, could understand that if you just say, "Oh no, you only get taxed the bigger chunk on money you earn over that amount." I reckon that's a fairly easy concept.
And I think that's something where actually it wouldn't even come into maths. To me, that would come into general studies. I think there's a scope for generic life skills to absolutely have just in school.
You won't be worse off.
Yeah,
that's what you need to understand. You're not going to be worse off going from 49 to 51 grand.
And I think that's really important. And I'm not against that. I think my point here is like, I think some people will be sat in maths thinking, why am I learning this? It's like, it is separate though. I just want to make that point. To me, it is a very separate thing. Like, of course it's maths, you need to understand it. And I guess my point is, to understand that, you need to have a higher level of maths maybe that you need to get to first. But it is also separate, like how taxes work, how bills work, like how to find a good deal. I didn't know how a mortgage worked until I got a mortgage. You know, but
or even
is
like
it
rent and
relevant?
stuff.
But is it relevant for a 15-year-old to know that? Can you not just learn it when you do it? Like, at what point is it like,
I don't
okay,
know.
we'll just do it when you're... I didn't get a mortgage until I was 25. Like, would it really have helped me to have done that when I'm 15? But like, I could probably think of other things that are more useful.
I don't know. I just think it could. Genuinely, I think it's worth teaching. I think it's worth some of the time in the curriculum, because it's not that big of a thing.
But we do talk about how the curriculum is bloated already. Like, what are we getting rid of?
I was just arguing with myself in my head then when you were talking. I wasn't listening to you, and thinking we did a whole episode recently on like the blurred lines between what parents should do and what teachers should do, right? And in primary school, that kind of argument is we're talking about little kids, and it's like, should teachers be showing them how to brush their teeth and stuff?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now I'm having this argument in my head of like, okay, well, when that gets older, what's the analogy now? Is it, of course we don't teach kids how to do tax. Parents do that. We're going to teach them the curriculum.
Yeah.
Parents, I'm
It
sure,
comes down
can
to what the
spend
role of
5
school
minutes
is.
teaching them how tax works, right?
But the problem is, again, they weren't taught it at school, so they don't know either.
Yeah.
Sit the
I'm arguing
curriculum.
with myself here. I don't know.
Yeah. But we have a bloated curriculum, and you started off by saying you don't think the curriculum's bad. So my point to you would be, because what frustrates me when people say this all the time, as like, oh, bloody teachers, what are they doing? A teacher should be teaching them real skills, like how to do this, how to do tax works, and how to pay the water bill. And I'm just like, okay, when and how and what do we drop instead?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's funny because after all this, even going back and forth in my head, my answer still hasn't changed though to that question of, does school prepare children for real life? Well, still no, because what I've said is not true.
Should
it's not
school-
untrue? Sorry, what I've said is not true.
Should school prepare a child for real life?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the question.
yeah.
It's like the first one. I don't think they do. And I guess the answer could be because that stuff gets taught by family and culture and society and parents.
Exactly
and other
that.
things.
Yeah.
Should they do it?
Because essentially what we're saying here,
Oh yeah, I think so.
what we say when we say should school prepare you for real life, let's break it down and get meta here. We're saying, should the government prepare your child for life? Because we're all government funded and the government are in charge of what the curriculum is. You know, how much is it down to the government to make sure that you understand tax, or like as the people who tax people? I'd say a very strong argument. Yes, they should.
Yeah.
If they're going to tax you and have this system in place, they should go out of their way to make sure you understand it and not just trust people to tell you like otherwise.
A lot of arguments I've seen online because this kind of thing gets talked about a lot, doesn't it? People always come out of school being like, "Yeah, the school system taught me nothing."
Yeah.
And a big one I always see is just general financial literacy, and how they're like, there's just none of it really. In you learn statistics, but you don't learn like general financial literacy that could help you in lots of different ways. And again, like history, you might not ever use it. You might not ever need to know how investing works and how compound interest works on money.
But
and how
compound interest is in the curriculum. I
is
learned
it?
I learned that in maths in secondary school.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I didn't know
100%.
that. Yeah. Okay. Well, that ruins the argument, doesn't it?
No,
out of interest, what is that just in like statistics?
Yeah,
statistics or
it's
something?
not just in maths. It was just like
Yeah,
the
right.
question would be something like, if I had $5,000 in a savings account and it was 4% annual interest, how much would I have after 3
Right,
years?
okay.
That was
Okay.
the question.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
'Cause
but I didn't ever make the link between me having a savings account and like
It
shopping
was
around
more like
for it.
it's just a context.
It was
maths
like
problem.
it was work out the maths.
Yeah,
And this is the
yeah.
point I'm making again. Like, okay, in maths, at what point do we say this stops being maths and it starts being a completely separate subject, which is how to apply this maths? Or because in a reading lesson, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't do a lesson on interpreting the news and understanding the bias of the news when we're teaching someone to read, right?
Yeah,
So when we're teaching someone to do maths, is it also then appropriate to be like, and here's the maths in the context of a mortgage scheme that you might buy into and reasons why it's good or bad? I'm not saying we shouldn't teach those other things. I'm not saying we shouldn't teach the bias of the news or how to shop around for a good mortgage. But is it just a separate thing? That's my point. Like, it's
guess-
just a different thing. Like, it doesn't mean one's bad because we don't do both.
Yeah, no, I think my answer to that is just like, just later on. The school's long. Like, you'd learn those things way earlier on. You'd learn the basic maths on how to work out a mortgage by like year 6, genuinely. So I think, by year 10s, should year 10s have an opportunity to learn a bit of financial literacy and
Completely.
put that into practice, and very much labelled as, you guys are going to be adults soon.
Yeah.
This is really useful information for when you're adults. Not just a problem anymore. You're solving a little maths problem like that you don't need to think about or care about. This is real. And this is how some finances work.
Yeah, I think it's
If
a
you
good
go down
point.
this life route, you might get faced with this situation. And this is how compound interest works in this situation. If you get a mortgage, this might happen.
Yeah.
If you decide not to, what are the pros and cons of renting and mortgaging? And buying a house? The amount of people online I see
Such
that
a
are
good
just
point.
so illiterate when it comes to understanding the difference between renting and buying a house as well. And, you know, you get arguments both ways of being like, yeah, you should only ever buy a house. Or, yeah, I'll never buy a house. I'll always be a renter. Here's why. And I'm always just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, to the arguments, they always miss stuff. And they
Yeah.
don't understand the fundamentals. And I'm like, these are adults, like, trying to educate other people. I don't know.
So
I
is it
think
the role of the school to step in?
Yeah, I think so. And I was very like this in the other episode we did, wasn't I? Where I was like, I just think a school is maybe a wider thing than it is. Because I also said in that episode that I think primary schools should have the capability to step in and do a lot of things that we deem as this is what parents do outside of school.
Sure.
I think secondary schools have a way bigger role in at that, especially at that end bit of being like, you are actually going to be adults soon, and this we don't like. Trickle out your education. It's very much like you just go bloop, stopped, bye. You just walk out of this building one day after coming here every day, and then you never come back.
And do a job where 98% of what you've learned is genuinely pointless.
Yeah,
Truly, in the average person, right? Really, like, can you tell me the 7 parts of a cell from biology lesson?
No.
Like, and I guess that's the wider point there. Like, they're not going to remember that. Okay. Well, they might not remember the mortgage thing, but tell you what, it's more likely someone's going to get a mortgage than ever have to tell me about the mitochondria.
Yeah. So some people remember that in the same way that some people will just remember the things about osmosis. It's like, I remember that word. You know, I don't know. I just wish I'd learned more stuff. As someone growing up that felt like I was fairly intelligent, like I liked education, I loved learning. To get to a point where I didn't understand like basically a year 6 level understanding of like a system, which was tax, really, with the maths behind it. At 20 years old, I was like, how the hell have I got to this stage and not know this? But I know all these things about like how to work with quadratic equations. Like, I don't understand. And that's the argument people make. They go, why do I need to learn all this? And when kids
I think
say
they've got a point. I think they've got. No, I'm saying. I think they've got a point when they say that.
Yeah,
like,
I can't. It's hard to.
There are certain things where even as a teacher, I'm like. Yeah, you're right. I don't need to learn the 4 over AC thing. 4AC. Do you remember like the square root of BC minus? I can't remember it. 4A minus C over B squared or something.
That's what
like, what's that for? Oh, it's to find the intersection of a line on the x-axis. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, can you teach me something useful? So I agree with you completely. I think. I guess my point here is again going on to the next thing. I suppose I want to know your opinion. Like, is it realistic to suppose we could change it then? Like, is that
Don't know.
School's been the same for so long. Like, how would you even go about doing it? Or do you just think it's this thing where we just have to become, as a society, more aware that school has these gaps and we have to fill them in certain ways? Or is it something where we should actually be like, no, actually, school needs to change?
I don't know if I'm being naive when I say I feel like it wouldn't be that hard for someone in the government or whoever does it to create a unit of the maths curriculum that's called financial literacy and does this thing like. And I often ask myself, why has it never been done? Because people have been complaining about this for years.
Yeah, a lot of conspiracy stuff about it. Like,
loads of people say
them low down,
keep the poor poor, keep the rich rich.
I don't know if I buy that.
No, I don't know. I think maybe there's a small subconscious bias like that, because I do think there is a divide. I can't say there's not a divide.
If you become a politician,
people.
it's probably because your parents knew how to get around.
Yeah, like there is clearly a difference between.
And let's keep it with
people.
what we know, like who we know, rather than what we know.
Yeah, so I do think that's there.
Maybe.
Whether they all sit around a table and go, let's make sure we never teach the children how a mortgage works. I don't think that ever happens, but I think subconsciously the people that got there for a reason, and probably equally all just have to share the same value of we need peasants though. We've got to keep the peasants. We're rich. You know, that's what they think about them. That's what they think about us, isn't it?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to be more positive than that, but I'm sure some people have that mindset.
Maybe not. Going off on one. Do I think we could change it? I think we could change it. I'm just not sure we will. But school's very traditional, isn't it? It's like you said, it's not changed in a long,
probably outdated.
long time.
I might say
might be a bit outdated. Could argue it's not. It just is.
So, okay, thinking about school then, going back to what you're saying about, let's think about preparing children for going into the workplace, which the average person is, right? So you're going into the workplace, when you go through primary school, we spend a lot of the end of primary school thinking, right, they're about to transition into secondary school. And then we put a lot of time and effort into saying how important that is and how much we need to prepare the children for it. So I remember finishing secondary school and I did have careers advice and stuff like that. I do think there is stuff in place. So I don't want anyone in secondary school to think I'm suggesting we just got off a cliff edge and you have no idea. I don't think that's what happens at all. However, there are certain things I look at, and this really stuck with me because it was an argument for homeschooling. And with homeschooling, where
Schooling.
yeah, why?
You were hearing that as well. Sorry, schooling,
Right, homeschooling,
homeschooling. Say school.
school,
Now say homeschool.
homeschooling.
It changes. School.
Oh, I can't deal with this. Why is my brain so
Ew.
weird?
Go on, carry on.
So it's someone with homeschooling, and they made the point because someone said, "Well, you're not with your peers. You miss out that kind of, you know, you're not with 32 others in year 4, for example." And instead, you're with like a mixture of ages. You're with a 14-year-old, your older brother, and like next door neighbor also homeschool, and they're 8 and 9, and you happen to be 6 or whatever. And you because of the way home educating at home works, you know, you're kind of doing the same thing because you can't be everywhere. You might go to the zoo and like learn about zebras, and everyone's learning about zebras because you're just there. And they made a really good point that's really stuck with me. And the point was, yeah, okay, fair enough. When will you ever be with 32 people your own age ever again in a and I was like,
yeah, it's true.
oh my god, yeah. When I went to work at Asda after I left school, out of the 200 people who worked in that shop, 3 of them were my age.
Yeah.
And I was directly working with people who I was directly working with a manager who was like in his 40s.
Yeah.
I was directly working with my colleague who was like, it's a retirement job. He's there 12 hours a week. He just puts the booze out, called Ken. Lovely bloke called Ken. But he was
Big
just there
up, Ken.
for 12 hours a week. Absolute legend. And just was, you know, he'd just sprinkle life advice every now and then. He'd walk past going, oh, you know, never do that. And he'd walk past. And never, like, I had never had any kind of social interaction or training, which we all pretend is really important. We're like, oh no, your kids need to go to school because they need to socially interact and learn how to be around other people and make these bonds and stuff. I was like, yeah, cool. Because then I'm going to go and do a completely different generation.
And work with people that are the same age as the teachers that I completely disconnected with.
Exactly. And it's
that's
like,
a good point. So
they
I'm going to
had
ask you the
different
question
backgrounds and stuff,
That's real life, what you just said there, for the majority of people.
Yeah.
So does school prepare you for that?
No.
Not really.
Not at all. Completely. I agree. I think the answer to this question, by the way, is no.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's a obvious solution that some people pretend there is. I think that's what I don't get annoyed, but I get frustrated when people are like, "Nah, we should do all of this," and I'm just like, "Okay, but there is a reason why we don't."
Yeah. I do get the whole, because I think the point you made a couple of times in this is that you know, some of these things are difficult to understand in real life, and if we've got kids who are illiterate in English and maths to a certain level, then it is genuinely a waste of time trying to get them to understand this concept that's even harder than the algebra they can't do.
And it doesn't mean there's not other stuff in school which I think is also a waste of time. I think that's the other thing to remember. I'm not saying that we've got a perfect balance here. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily going to solve all our problems if we try and teach a 12-year-old about compound interest and shopping for mortgages, which they will never do for another 15 years minimum in their life. Like I think there's got to be something in place. And again, whether it's the government or not, I don't know. I think sometimes you and I, with our politics, we rely too much on the government doing stuff. Honestly, that's how I feel. I think we're quite left leaning in terms of the government step in and provide help where needed.
Yeah.
Like I do think there is an argument to say though, like, yeah, okay, but if you're going to shop for a mortgage, it's just down to your individual like research. Like you do need to just go and find out about it. Like to me, that's different to tax, like you said.
Yeah,
I'm going to go and work for the system and be exploited potentially economically. You should be taught that. But when it comes to like shopping for an interest rate, do you know what? I didn't know, but I learned it in a week.
Yeah.
Like I just had to do some research. I'm like, oh, that's
and it's
how it
easier
works.
to do that now more than ever.
And it's easy then to be like, well, why wasn't I taught that at school? Well, that's why, because you just taught yourself really easily because you had a whole education where you would become literate in other stuff.
You got the skills that you
got
could
the
understand.
Skills, exactly. You've been in the workplace for a while and you understand how to find information. That's way more important. How to find information. That's going to set people up, because my wider point here, and I know you're going to go into something, but the point I'm making here is school will never ever prepare everyone for real life. We could make all of these changes that we're talking about, and there'd be a group of kids who are worse off now for real life because they got way more out of the biology stuff. They became scientists and things like that. School is never going to hit every single child and get them ready for real life. So what we need to do is maximize that, and I think the way we maximize that in school is by teaching skills really well. If you teach skills really well, with the odd splattering of what they enjoy and facts and ideas and stuff, it means when they're 28 and they come to get a mortgage, you've taught them how to interpret sources, how to trust what websites are going to give them good advice, how to understand and comprehend data, and you did statistics, so you understand this graph now, and you know what exponential means, and you know what that kind of growth is going to look like because you understand what compound interest is. You understand how much you're going to get charged over a certain amount of time. because I've had all that foundation, it means I'm then able to work things out for myself and learn things myself. I think that's way more powerful than us just saying, you need to learn about mortgages in school. It's like, cool, well, I've dropped something else that I might need then in the future. So I think it's more important to teach people, this is the last thing I'm going to say before you come back at me, because I want to hear what you think. It's more important to teach people and get them to a point where they can learn anything they need to, because everyone's going to have an individual life. So that's way more powerful to me than preempting what they need to know.
Yeah. And I think that's great. And I think for people like me and you who did enjoy our time in education and do well out of education, that's great because it has set us up. But a lot of people, like you said, and it's never going to prepare everybody. A ton of people are coming out of school not even at that level still.
So what makes you think teaching about taxes would help?
I just think, like you said, I just think it will reduce the amount of people who are like me at 20 years old, who will just be fed misinformation and they've got no pre-information to even argue against it with, right? They might be like, oh, I know, I did learn about this at school. I'm sure that's not how it works. I can't remember how it works because I can't remember a lot of things, but I'm sure it wasn't that. I just think having had...
But they won't remember the tax either.
And maybe not, but having had exposure to it at school, it might at least give them it just gives people a chance at least at fighting misinformation, because it's so rife misunderstanding with those life things, like even just like how bills work. The amount of people that just don't even know. They even like unless their parents tell them, they don't even know that you have to pay for the water that comes out of your tap. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree, by the way, that there are levels. And I think that basic level of water costs money, by the way.
Yeah.
Or like, you will be taxed for the work you do. So when you get a job that's 30 grand a year, you don't actually get 2.5 grand a month. You're going to get X, Y, Z. Yeah. I think that's really, really important and on a different level to like shopping for a mortgage deal or very specific stuff. So I completely agree. Like they're easy wins we could put in.
Yeah.
And not rely on family and not rely on who people know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. What are you thinking?
Don't know. I was just actually reflecting on your point about big up Ken from Asda, and just thinking about the social side again, just kind of going back to that, and not just talking about the kind of the knowledge, the academics and things, and just being like, it's just really stuck with me at that point, because I just can't believe how I've never thought of that before.
That's something I saw.
It's like, yeah, of course. Actually, when you go to get a job, you have to work with people from different ages and generations, different beliefs, biases, different upbringings. That's really hard to navigate, I think. I found that really tough starting work. Like suddenly talking to someone who's 35 years older than me, who had a completely different experience through life, has these completely different opinions politically about social structure, everything. And I'm just like, I've never been experienced to this, because all of the kids my age, we all think the same thing. Yeah, we all just kind of agree with each other because we're all growing up together. Yeah,
just thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, and that's just weird to me. I'm like, what can we even do? Can we even do anything with that? I don't know. Like, is that goes back down to, is that the school's responsibility? Like, is it even possible for a school?
I don't think so. I think that's where society as a whole needs to do much better. And the whole saying of like, it takes a village to raise a kid and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that you cannot, I don't think you can manufacture that through like a state-run school or something like that. Yeah. I think you just have to, what the government maybe can do, or what you can do as a society is like, for example, I know, that you have had your next door neighbor round for dinner.
Yep.
They're an older couple. But I think a lot of people would think, oh no, I won't ask them because they're not of my generation, not friends. Yeah. You've had them round for dinner. Yep. So let's say River's 6, 7, 8, 9. They come around for dinner because you just make them friends. That's put her in that situation where she's then, socializing with someone on a socializing level. I think that's way more about how we act as a society and how we can build those things in.
Not the school's job.
Yeah, the school, it would be too contrived. Like, what would you do? Like, go to a care home? Like, that's not normal. It needs to be in real life situations. And I think I guess my overall point here is, I think it's important, and I think school has a huge role to play in this. But I don't think it's healthy to pretend that the best way to do most of this would be through real life as well. To prepare someone for real life, school is not real life. It's a very manufactured experience. Like, you're with 32 people of your own age group, the only time you'll ever do that, and you're being told a curriculum which has been decided by the people in suits what you need to know. Unless it fundamentally changes from the ground up. To be prepared for real life is to go through real life experiences, and school won't provide them.
No. Okay. I want to clarify something with you, because I'm actually a tiny bit lost as to what you think about this, right? Based on what you said.
Because my answer was no to this, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So when you had a bit of a monologue a minute ago about how you did. It was good. But I was kind of questioning at the end, like,
go on.
Okay, if you are actually presented with the opportunity now, or it's like, You can cull a unit from one of the year groups, right? We're talking a minimal amount over a whole education of a child, right? You're going to cull one of the units over a whole term, and they're going to replace it. Let's say it's in maths, to make it a big subject.
Yeah,
and it is going to be replaced with some sort of unit where it's just like the whole focus is this is what the average person's life looks like in the UK, and here are all the things you need to know to do it. And it just, and more than what we've probably only touched on a few things, the ones that we just mentioned, like tax and paying your bills and stuff. There's probably loads more if we sat down and thought about it. You kind of made the argument for, well, you learn those things when you need it. It's not necessarily going to be useful to learn it then. Would you then actually say no to that coming in? Let's not replace something in the curriculum that exists. Or would you still be like,
nah,
okay, yeah, let's have that in there?
I wouldn't say no to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say no to it because I think it's useful. And I think if you started with a blank canvas and someone said, okay, you can learn Sokotoa and how to calculate the side of a triangle and how to calculate the side of a triangle, or we can do a unit on, bills and tax and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it would be really, really hard to argue against picking the bills.
Yeah, because it does mean now that the people that do end up becoming mathematicians have lost this really massive fundamental thing.
Because what we're doing as a school is actually we're just trying to hit as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's what
and
I think.
More people will do it. I'm not against that. I don't want anyone to think that. What I'm saying is I don't think that we're going to solve this problem and prepare every child for school anyway.
No.
For life, sorry, anyway.
No.
So what I'm saying is it's all well and good saying, oh, schools should do this, schools should do that. And I'm not even against it. I think some of the stuff you see like Santander and all the big banks have like released a lot of financial literacy stuff. And I think it is vital to be financially literate. And I think the amount of times I've explained stuff to people who've just asked me like, what does it mean pro rata? Like I want to go for a job. It says 24K pro rata. Like that's mental because a lot of people just think 24K and it's like, no, it's pro rata. So like maybe it's a 0.8 contract. You're actually going to get paid 18 grand or whatever it is. Like I'm like, okay, that's cheeky. But why would you know that unless you've been told it? Right.
Yeah.
And I guess my point is, cool. You could have been taught that in year 8 or 9, but you still might be confused when it comes to real life.
But a lot of people might not be.
That's great. And I'm not against that. Yeah. I think what I'm saying is, you're never going to prepare everyone for their life.
Yeah.
Because what is everyone's life is so different. Like there are some people who are self-employed and need to know their tax thing. Yeah. There are some people who are never self-employed, get the gist that they're taxed something because it goes to the government and runs the NHS that they use and stuff like that. Do they really need to know about the ins and outs of it? Like maybe not. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, right? But I guess my overall point is just quite simply, school is not going to prepare everyone for real life. We can do the best we can. We can still try and improve it.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend though that there's one option that's going to fix everything.
No,
because it's not.
No, I don't think anyone thinks that.
No, but I think as a wider culture, let's not just point to school and say, oh, you know what? I don't know about this, and it's because of school. It's like, okay, but are there other ways that we could have learned these things? You have to learn some stuff. Not from school.
Yeah, I guess so. And to me, it's not the stuff that we've left out.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, that's your. Yeah. If I was to rank the things that I think are most important to like the most people, right? Yeah. Right at the top is like 100% people need to read. Yeah. So it's like, that has to be in school. And then the percentages would go down, right? Of like the amount of people that need the thing. All of the life skills we've talked about in this one come above, I would honestly estimate, absolutely every other subject and everything you learn in them.
So would you just not do biology anymore then?
I wouldn't not do it because I don't think it'd need that much space. But if you
list everything, it's like, are more people going to put a table together in their life? Or put a bit of IKEA flat pack furniture together?
Yeah.
Or, learn how to budget their money every month because they need to pay their bills and stuff?
Yeah, genuinely.
But is that more important than knowing what the function of the mitochondria is?
Probably.
So let's, drop that then.
Yeah, if we have to
put in flat pack part.
If it has to be replaced, then sure. But then
I'd say that word.
Flat pack parts. But then the argument carries on because I feel like that's quite a that's like a headline of a newspaper like it's getting me like captured because then the same thing will be like, okay, but now let's check biology. Is there something now less important that biology can stay in? And you just go to the bottom of the list basically. What's the least important thing that they do at school for a term? And we'll get rid of it and we'll put this thing in. It's like, okay, probably I don't know, maybe that unit on in German that they learn in year 11. Okay, check out our episode next week. It's K languages. We talk about languages. That's why I put it in there because I knew you'd win. But realistically, it is, isn't it? It's like it'll be something like that. Yeah. There'll be some unit of some subject that is like, oh mate, you know what? 0.02% of people ever use that in their life, whereas like 80% use this thing.
And I think that would be a good place to start. I do. Yeah. And I've got nothing against that because I don't think school prepares children for real life right now. I think it does a decent job at what it's what it does do, which is provide
Exposure and
curriculum,
skills,
exposure
right?
and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to do it. I think that's the point I'm coming across. Like, I don't want to be defeatist or anything, but school is never ever going to prepare everyone, because, like you said, how do you mimic that societal thing where you go into work with complete different nature? You can't mimic that.
No.
You can learn how taxes work, and that's important, but as a whole, it's not going to happen. And I suppose the point that one of the last points you wanted to make, and I'll throw it over to you, is I think we agree, and everyone in the whole country agrees, that school is not for everyone. So, you know, how do we go about this? Do we try and fix school, or do we go down the route which is already happening, is and open different types of school, forest schools, you know, farming schools and stuff like that?
I don't have anything against those schools. You hear them. I remember learning about it when I was at the secondary school, actually, and I've been having my mind open that there was this school where kids went, and it was basically just a giant farm. And rather than doing the curriculum that we did, they went out and like looked after the animals every day and did all these things. And I was like, what?
Are they all going to become farmers?
That's an option. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Is that just as useless as the curriculum we've got
I
now?
don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that, but I like that those options
Yeah, I agree.
are there. I guess it just, those things just open your mind a little bit to, there is more than this one system, though. Like, it might not be the best system that we all went through and have that circular system that we've done for centuries now.
It's not. I guess, okay, I'm going to move on immediately, because I think it's really interesting, though, because school is, you're in a school, okay, and you have a curriculum. I always think back to one of my colleagues in one of the earliest schools I worked at, one of the people I worked with there.
Was it me?
No. Who said they had someone in their class and they were just like, school is not for this kid. School is not for this kid. Already knew, and it was like year 3 or 4, already knew that school was not for this kid.
Yeah.
And was on it. And this guy was a bit sad that he was like, he's got another 10 years at this because he's just got to.
Yeah.
It's not for him
Waste
whatsoever. It's complete waste. Do you know what's going to happen? When this kid's older, in 15 years, I'm going to go to my local wildlife park, my local zoo, and this kid's going to be a zookeeper, amazing at his job, happy as Larry, doing a practical job, or a labourer or something like that.
Yeah.
Really good at it, getting on with people, very sociable. And school's going to fail him for 15 years. He's going to resent it. He's going to leave, get a job like that. And his point was just like, why are we putting him through this system?
Yeah.
Why are we putting kids through this system, which is absolutely already, we all know as professionals that school is not preparing this kid for what their life will be. Why are we pretending that it does? Like, and no amount of changing the curriculum or doing tax at the right time or, you know, giving him, like, that's not going to fix this point that school is absolutely not for this kid. You know, what do we do at that point? Because it is broken at that point.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole, like, that what's it from, Albert Einstein or something? The whole judging a fish to how it can climb a tree. That analogy thing. I always remember that picture because I'm like, it's such a good visual representation.
And we got that from the schools. We didn't really do anything, though, do we? When that happens, we're just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to do it still.
Oh, I think the school system fails so many kids. And this is almost a different conversation right now, but it does. I know I've taught loads of them over the years.
Does it prepare for real life? No.
Doesn't prepare those kids for real life, no. Because this whole conversation, funny enough, has been about the average kid.
Yeah.
And actually, the average kid isn't everyone, though.
Yeah. And even the average kid isn't fully prepared for life.
No, not really. They're still not. Yeah, I still don't think they are.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, there's those outliers. But the country's so massive, those outliers aren't 1 or 2 people. It's thousands and thousands of kids every single year who the school system is absolutely not remotely for them, and they waste their entire childhood resenting, probably end up way worse off than just not even going to school because they actually just feel terrible about themselves because they failed at everything they've done all the way through. Yeah, you're right. Don't know. It's a big one, isn't it?
It's sad.
Should we leave that with the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. And
To think about.
Even on that low note, and I guess the overall point I'll summarize, then you can maybe summarize what you think, is should school even prepare every child for real life? It's a futile task. And there's going to be certain things that we can put in, and I would never argue against. But I think there's a huge, massive, different way to prepare children for life, and it's very bespoke. And I don't think the school system can ever do that for every single child. So I think what we should be focusing on is how to make sure every child can be ready using the school system and other things as well.
Yep, fair enough. And my one, just go back to the original question then, does it prepare children for real life? I guess my overall point is no, simply because there's just a big chunk of real life that hasn't even been attempted to be put into school life that would, in my opinion, be prioritized over many, many other things that already exist in school life. Not everything, but many other things. Cool. And that's the point I'd like to leave it on. Listeners, let us know what you think.
Good chat, guys.
How do they get in touch with us, Dylan?
I was just going to say, follow us on Instagram at Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you guys. Get involved in the polls, get involved in everything else. And if you are listening right now on a Spotify or a Apple podcast platform, which most of you are, or whatever it is, actually, can you please give us a review? It really does help us. You've got this far in this podcast. Hopefully we weren't that annoying and awful. We were actually quite interesting to listen to. But we want to hear what you think as well. You know, what would you introduce immediately into the school curriculum to prepare children for real life? What would you introduce tomorrow? if
That's
you were
going to be
given
our
a point?
Q&A.
Definitely.
On our
And I think
Spotify
I'm
platform.
gonna make a reel as well about that
Nice.
on the day this is released. So if you found us from that reel, hello, welcome, follow. It's great.
See you next time.
See you next time.